In this video, I'm going to go through the new player experience in Dual Universe. So let's start a new character and play through the beginning tutorial. After some cinematics, you will load into the character creator here. You have two body types you can choose from, and you can change the color of a few parts of your character to your liking. Now, as far as I know, you cannot go back and change your body type after you finalize your character, but you can go back and modify the colors later if you want. After we are happy with our character, it's time to select our starting outpost. You've got 10 outposts to choose from, and the one that you select will serve as your starting base when you begin the game. Now, this decision will not be a big deal in the grand scheme, but I'll go ahead and cover some aspects of the outpost that players might value. Like the first outpost here, the platform outpost, provides you a nice area to land on top of the base, which some players will value, as well as the next outpost, the pilot outpost, which provides room to land, but that runway would also be enough space to put down a factory setup quickly, and I believe this outpost also comes with a space fuel tank, and I'm betting that this one will be a popular choice. One factor that many players will consider about all of these outposts is what type of honeycomb these bases are made of, as well as what elements they contain. See, everything you're looking at can be categorized as either an element or honeycomb, and I often refer to honeycomb as voxel, just to be clear about that. You will be able to deconstruct all of the honeycomb and elements that an outpost contains and use that material at your discretion at another time, which is what I assume a good percentage of players will make their outpost selection on. Let's talk about this station. This is the only outpost that is an extra small core. Every other outpost is constructed on a small core, which gives you more room to expand, so just know that space will be limited. However, this base does have a radar, and it has the most storage container capacity of all the bases, so there will be players who choose this outpost because of those two attributes. Now, the dojo doesn't have as much storage as Station, but it does have more than the other bases we've seen thus far, and is one of those bases that has a lot of voxel should you decide to repurpose the base. And that brings us to the Tri Outpost, which has the same amount of increased storage as Dojo, and has a space fuel tank, and I think this one will be one of the more popular selections. You will have 4 starting vehicles to choose from, and by the looks of it, you should get about the same performance with all of them. The decision will probably come down to aesthetics for most players, and if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how to make these fly, as they only start out with the ability to hover along the ground. Next, it is time to choose a territory on the starting moon Haven. Just want to mention that players who supported Dual Universe through the Kickstarter will have the ability to start on the Moon Sanctuary. Now, this is the first decision you have to make that could affect you long term, as once you choose a territory, that selection is permanent. There are 3 distinct biomes on Haven that you can settle in. You have a temperate biome on either side of a desert that wraps around the equator, and then the polar ice caps on the top and the bottom of the moon. If you want to be close to other players, then selecting a territory close to the market will be a good choice. But if you prefer to have a more private location, settling further away from the markets is the way to go. Once you have finalized your territory selection, you will go through a few more cinematics, and then you will load into the actual game. I did use a recruiter friend code to get some useful items to start with, and if you have a new account or will be creating one soon, feel free to use my recruiter friend code posted in the comments.
Greetings, settler.
Ophelia is the voice of the tutorial and will walk you through the basic controls and functions of the game. You can also follow along by reading the text box in the bottom left of the screen, which will highlight what the next step is in the tutorial. Your first task will be to get down to your starting territory via your drop pod. After you land, your territory control unit will be automatically deployed. You can see which territory is yours on the minimap in the top right of the screen. Yours will be displayed in green, while other players will be red, and any unclaimed territory will be blue. I should mention that now would be a good time to start training your talents, as they do take time to train, and it's a good idea to always have talents queued up. You can access the talent menu with the F2 key. Getting back to the tutorial, the next task is getting familiar with movement. There are 3 speeds at which you can move. The first speed is walking by using your W. Shift plus W is a faster run speed, and then double tapping the W will engage your jetpack, which is the fastest speed. Also, Control plus Z is your auto run, which will utilize your jetpack speed. Next, we will deploy our outpost, but before we do, Ophelia will ask us to flatten some terrain. Just know that minor adjustments to the terrain will keep it intact, but anything more will create a noticeable edge. When you first load your outpost for deployment, you will be able to move the outpost around freely with the mouse. For more control, use the directional keys and page up and page down for elevation changes. This will also take the outpost movement off of your mouse and will allow you to walk around your outpost in preview mode. Holding R and using your mouse wheel will allow you to rotate your outpost. Once you have your outpost down, Ophelia will take some time to walk you through its features. I will point out that the map that every outpost contains is interactable and provides valuable information about the planets and moons and what ore can be mined on them. This is your resurrection node, the place where you will respawn after death. In order to use these, you need to activate them. You can have multiple res nodes activated, and when you die, you will spawn at the one closest to the location of your death. It is important to know that when you die, you lose everything in your inventory.
Try not to die. It is not fun.
Let's talk about the mining unit that comes with your outpost. This small mining unit will allow you to gather one of the 4 ores found on Haven. Over time, the mining unit will deposit ore into your container. Now, this small mining unit is not going to be a significant source of ore, but you can craft and place more of these down to increase your output, and you can also train talents to improve your mining unit's productivity. Now, this mining unit will start at 100% calibration, and that calibration will slowly degrade to 0. You do have 3 days before you start to lose calibration, so you will only have to calibrate a couple of times a week to keep your mining unit optimized. Next, Ophelia is going to ask you to find your surrogate VR station, which allows you to go visit player creations that are VR capable. And from your VR station, you can also do tutorials and challenges that will allow you to earn a little money upon completion. VR is a popular way to have a look at player-created shops that sell everything from ship parts and honeycomb to entire ships and more. One thing to remember is that VR is convenient for browsing and sightseeing, but if you want to make a purchase, you will need to travel to the actual location in person, as anything you purchase while in VR will be lost upon exiting the VR session, so be careful not to buy in VR. Now it's time to deploy our speeder, and this works the same way as placing our outpost earlier in the tutorial. I mentioned earlier that these speeders start out as a hovercraft, but I want to show you how you can quickly convert this to a ship capable of flying. Go back to your drop pod and enter build mode by pointing at the drop pod and pressing B. You can remove these 2 stabilizers from your drop pod by having your element tool selected and pressing Alt plus left click on each. Once you have the 2 stabilizers, find your speeder and go into build mode on it. Now select your stabilizers and put them on each side of your speeder. Placement doesn't have to be perfect for your ship to function here, but if you want to keep things symmetrical, pressing U on the element you just placed will turn your next element placed yellow when it is symmetrically aligned with the previous. From here, right-click on your pilot seat and select Run Default Auto Configure, and select the last option, Pilot Flying Construct. Now, the controls for hovering and flying are different. For example, your W no longer increases thrust, but pitches you down, and your thrust control is located on the mouse wheel. With a little practice, you will have the controls mastered and greatly increase your mobility. It is inevitable that at some point you're going to damage elements on your ship, and you can see what parts are damaged by activating your repair tool, which will display damaged elements as yellow and broken elements as red. You also will know when your elements sustain damage by the sound of an explosion, and smoke and sometimes sparks emitting from the damaged element. You need scrap to be able to repair, so I'll go over how to make some with the resources you have. First, press K, and this will open up your nanocrafter that allows you to craft a variety of things on your person. There are many types of scrap, but with our limited resources, we will need to use a scrap that is derived from an ore existing on our starting territory. In this case, I selected aluminum scrap, which is made with bauxite. Now, if you selected bauxite as the ore for your mining unit, then you probably have some in your outpost's container. If not, you will need to go harvest some from the surface using your harvesting tool. Once you have a bit of bauxite, open your nanocrafter and make a small batch of pure aluminum, and then you can use that pure aluminum to make aluminum scrap. Now equip your scrap from your inventory with your repair tool selected, point at the broken element and hold the left mouse button until the element is at 100%. In the event that you flip your speeder, you can easily put it right side up by using the maneuver tool, using the same flying controls to steer your speeder into your desired orientation. That concludes the tutorial. To continue learning more, look for the Personal Objectives Assistant Manager in your Outpost. This will guide you through more basic aspects of the game to help you on your way. I do hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give me a like to give this video a better chance to reach others. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in Dual Universe.